away. It's juxtaposed between the school of thought that it, it's impetus to suggest beware of uh, that the gift or the bonus of having awakened to something that is of value.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily want to give it away initially, but if you sit there kind of curmudgeonly with an attitude of I'm not going to be in a sharing position, it's at a standstill. Nothing moves forward.
Right. And you
So
can't have any growth economically or spiritually if you don't give. You have to give more than you take. The
yeah,
world gets better, you know.
yeah, yeah. It's a challenging concept, but
Right.
once you've felt it, once you've uh, had the luxury of tiptoeing through the experience, it's a wide open space. Everybody can win.
Right. All the great things in my life have come as a direct consequence of giving stuff away. Actually, my time in the cryptocurrency space, that's how it got started. My very first venture was the Bitcoin Education Project. This was about 8 years, 9 years ago. And I gave away a free class. And my dad said, well, what the hell are you doing? You're not going to make any money if you give it away for free. I said, oh, don't worry about it. It's all just going to work out. And so I ended up getting 70,000 students, and I got over 5,000 emails with that course. It was called, because I'm a big Peter Sellers fan, it was called Bitcoin or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Crypto, after Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah.
And anyway, one of my students was a VC guy in China, and he gave me the money I needed to start my first business in the industry. But I've noticed every time we've ever given anything away, it's always come back to us a factor of 5 or 10. And I hope that's a lesson that becomes inculcated throughout the industry. That you should develop this servant mindset of what can we do for others and how can we help others. Spiritually is really good for you, but also it turns out it's always created successful businesses in this respect.
Uh, I mentioned having the opportunity to conduct today's exchange, just you and I together. And as it turns up, now was that initial Bitcoin, the walkthroughing, the walkthroughing of that. Was that? Did that take place in Berkeley?
No, I did. I record all the lectures here in Colorado, and I put it up for free on a website called Udemy, which is still around, and I think they've been syndicated on YouTube and a couple other platforms. But I gave away the intellectual property, so I released it all as a Creative Commons licensed course, and they got replayed probably millions of times throughout
Yes,
the years.
your good work has spread far and wide. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that was just one thing. And what's really amazing is that almost all the really good Bitcoin education stuff is free, like Gensler's lectures at MIT or the Princeton course and so forth. And that's really cool that not only does a space exist, if you want to learn about it, you don't have to go pay a bunch of money. You can just go and find something online, and it's very credible. What was also really cool was the continuous quality improvement. So when I released the lectures, I had some small mistakes here and there, and then people would email me and say, "Hey, I don't understand." Oh, well, that's because I made a mistake, and it's wildly out of date. I had a whole lecture on what would it take for Bitcoin to be $10,000. I said, "Oh, that's pretty crazy. It's not going to happen." But because Bitcoin was like $4 at the time that when it came out, and I was just having fun. I love Austrian economics and open source software and these open ecosystems. So I said it's so cool that I get to kind of play around and do money stuff. Because we normal people can never actually have a say in how your money works. You can't go to the Federal Reserve and say, hey, the US dollar should work this way. Stop printing money, you dummies. And now somehow we have choice in the matter as private citizens. And that's the first time in our lives where we've had that kind of liberation. And to be able to do that at scale now at nation states with millions of people just 12 years into this is incredible. The,
Yes.
the other thing is the adoption. I was in Mongolia. I love Mongolia. If you ever go, it's one of my favorite countries in the world. And we were in the Gobi Desert, and we were hanging around with a camel herder. And he asked me through a translator what I did for a living, and I said, "Oh, well, I'm a cryptocurrency entrepreneur." And he said, "Like Bitcoin?" I was just like, how the hell
Wow.
does a camel herder in Mongolia know about Bitcoin? It turned out he actually owned a little bit, and his brother was holding on to it for him in the capital city, Ulaanbaatar. But just 12 years into this, the movement is so pervasive and spread, and these concepts are so pervasive and spread that a nomad living in a tent with no electricity, no running water, no internet it has actually heard of it through the grapevine, like just people word of mouth were talking about it. That's pretty
There,
remarkable.
there is a mysterious appeal that is propelling the interest down to uh, uh, individuals that just at face value, you would not necessarily think that they would be tuned in, particularly in the middle of the Gobi Desert. That uh, it's entertaining to learn of it, and at the same time, maybe not so surprising at this. I hope you have a seatbelt because your wishes may be coming very true very quickly. Just yesterday, and that's what when I use that word appeal. Uh, the appearance of Cardano, I think I found it rather magnetic, and one of the threads that pervasively came into the discussions yesterday was the simplification of this rather mysterious platform. Um, I like what Cardano has managed to create a nearly frictionless pathway that can be traversed. It's not going to boat anchor uh, those without a depth of current present day understanding. I think we can feel the draw is in the fact that the team is putting fires out left and right, and it is streamlining the process where it's going to become quite clear to a novice can really get in and enjoy the benefits of what is being pushed forward at great speed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, just the Diged paper is a great example of that, where, a lot of people say, well, I'd hold crypto, but the problem is the volatility. The price goes way up, it goes way down. It makes it difficult for a merchant to adopt that. So what do you do about it? Well, you can create instruments that are actually value stable. So they kind of get pegged to the dollar, or they can be pegged to a more inflation resistant basket. And that can run on top of a platform like Cardano and be collateralized by ADA. So we said, well, why don't we just design one? So from the initial conversation to the actual paper to the implementation has only been a matter of 6 months. And we're getting to a point where we're actually getting ready to run experiments. And these experiments probably can be done at scale. So not just something running on the Cardano network, but potentially a nation state central bank digital currency. So a nation's money. And this is actually one of the things that's on the agenda as we go through Africa. And we talk about monetary innovation of what would a Pan-African currency look like a euro for Africa, or what would a better money look like? And what's really cool is it's programmable. So once you have that, then you can start adding things to it. Like, for example, this idea of a sovereign wealth fund and universal basic income. I'm a quarter Norwegian, and Norway's got one of the largest sovereign wealth funds. It's $1.4 trillion. It's just a massive amount of money. Well, if they wanted to, they just give everybody in the country a $50,000 check. I mean, that's how much money they have on hand. And so good monetary policy there. Well, what if, like Burundi or Malawi or one of these countries adopted a CBDC, and every time a transaction happened, it generated a transaction fee, and that fee would go into a sovereign wealth fund. And then every quarter, they just give a dividend to everybody in the country. It's something like that. That's an experiment that we literally could run in a 2-year, 3-year time horizon. Normally, when you talk about the money of a nation state, you're talking about decades, centuries. You're talking about huge transnational agreements. And for that to run there, and it can be done by a small group of people, 5, 10 people, and the government innovation office, and could roll out over the whole country in a matter of just a months on a cell phone, it's pretty extraordinary, and it's going to bode very good things, I think, for the future.
Yes, and not to overly brag on Cardano, but another aspect that is being addressed, and it's of value to the bystanders that are getting very curious about the whole crypto universe. the custodianship that exists, as far as I know, within the confines of what Cardano stands for, um, it's not out of the question to make certain that uh, I guess I'm trying to say the spiritual nature of it all is
Mhm.
not being ignored. Um, the bad guys may be waiting in the wings, but they're not in the shadows. They've already been weeded out, and they're they're uh, they're being held off. It's I guess it comes down to the elegance of this custodianship, because to me, what Cardano is really promising. It seems to be a stepping stone into the blockchain universe, which uh, it 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 is providing an enrichment of the experience. It's really cool.
Right. Right. And it's an interesting question of how do you get good custodianship of a decentralized organization? We haven't solved that problem as an industry yet. And usually what ends up happening is out of frustration or necessity, you find some sort of beneficent hero to come in like Washington on a white horse and save everybody, and then hope that he retires after he saves everybody. But usually they make themselves king for life. That's what human history has shown us. So the question is, when you go from a centralized to a decentralized ecosystem, how do you make sure the ecosystem can evolve, is legitimate, is effective, preserves its original intent and principles, but at the same time doesn't create a king or some small group of people that get a lot of power or can feast off the system? I think that's the hardest part of all the problems. The things like scalability and stability and a lot of this technological stuff, every university in the world's working on it. There's a lot of engineers working on it. We have some great ones, and our competitors have great ones, and we all learn from each other. But the governance part is, I think, you're absolutely right, the most unique component of that, because it's so easy for bad guys to come in, and they always come in with honeyed words. They always come in and during a crisis and tell you how great they are and how they're going to save everything and make everything amazing. And then they don't leave after you've invited them in. It's like the vampire. Once you invite it into the house, it doesn't leave. You know, uh,
Yeah.
so so what's so cool is when you hold a US dollar, you have no say in how that dollar works. When you hold ADA, you have a say. Everybody who holds it can vote. Everybody in it can participate in a process. And we already have about $1 billion of ADA in the Catalyst Fund, and we have great participation there. 33,000 people participated in the last voting round. We think over 50,000 will participate this way around. It's early days. It'll grow to millions over the next few years. And suddenly the people building on it, the people holding it, the people interacting with it, they have as much say as the people who invented the system. And if you've designed it the right way with the right principles, those principles can't be violated. The moment for me where Bitcoin got great as a technology and what really legitimized the ecosystem was the failure of Mt. Gox. That was our 2008 so Mt. Gox was an exchange, and the audience who don't know, and it collapsed in 2013. And at the time, it held about 20% of all the value of Bitcoin in that one exchange. So it was like the Lehman Brothers. That collapse was catastrophic. The people who maintained Bitcoin, they had personally millions of dollars of their own money on Mt. Gox, and if they let that collapse happen without a bailout, they'd lose all their money. But they chose to let it happen because they said we need to have integrity in the system. We can't reverse transactions. Things are immutable. You can't change the monetary policy. And that to me said, this is a fundamentally different animal than any of these social systems that we create in America or Europe or other places. Because every time a crisis happens, somebody shows up and says, all right, well, I know we have principles and integrity and commandments and constitutions, but we can't let this crisis happen. We have to just, intervene, but we won't do it again after this thing. It's too big to fail. We have to take care of it. Well, once Bitcoin didn't do that and it survived and thrived, it said you can have systems exist where that is the default behavior. The thing you read on the label, it stays that way. It's always honest. It's not going to lie to you. It's not going to change. So then the question is, what type of government can you build on top of social structures that are immutable like that? And suddenly now your voting system has that same. So no one ever questions if the vote is a problem because you can check it yourself. Suddenly your money system is this way. Suddenly all the other things that you issue there, these NFTs, people can't take them from you. Once they're issued, they're yours. And no one can go 5 years later, 10 years later, grab it out of your wallet or something like that. And so I'm really excited about that part. I think that's the biggest, most hidden gem, and I'm glad you brought it up about the cryptocurrency space as a whole, is this idea of like a law of physics for social contracts, for the way we treat each other, connect to each other, and also a return to integrity and a return to honesty. We don't have that
Yeah,
in society right now.
you're right on it. You've hit the nail on the head. The moral standing, which has a shiny side, uh, up until now, was maybe not so difficult in certain instances to overshadow that shiny side. I dare say that it is becoming increasingly prohibitive, uh, and to bring it down to just common sense, the bad guys are going to have a real tough time figuring out how to trash the system. Uh, there's too many eyes available. There's which is quite appealing. We've seen that shiny side darkened, but not now.
Yeah, and that's what makes it fun. And what's so cool is kids get to grow up in a world where that's the default. They don't have to be cynical anymore. That's the thing that worries me the most about the way the world's going is usually no matter how bad it gets you, I say, well, the next generation is going to figure it out. Those kids they'll get together and make sure it gets done. Unfortunately, the next generation, you talk to those kids, they're like, oh, it's hopeless. The whole world's on fire. I said, well, at least Billy Joel told you that we didn't start it.
Oh. Yeah, and there's a real entertaining element that overshadows anything on the negatives are already outweighed by sheer entertainment. The smile that comes into the room seems to be staying there. When you see them leaving the building with the smile still on the face, it's very encouraging.
Yeah, exactly. And we can finally have institutions that can't lie to us, and we can finally have institutions that have integrity again. They deserve that. We deserve
Start
that.
the clock. Start the clock now.
Exactly. Well, Billy, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for sitting down with us, spend some time, and I really enjoyed it.
Indeed. Refresh my memory of your upcoming 3-week sojourn to back to Africa. You go? Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm taking 2 weeks off after the summit's over, and I haven't had a vacation in a few years, and I think I'm just going to collapse and die. I used to have a lot more hair.
Yeah. Well, if you go this little African hat, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, I'm going to South Africa to start. We'll be in Cape Town with Ramaphosa's family, and then after that we move up to Burundi and Malawi, and then Zanzibar. And then Zanzibar is really cool because we have a partner there called World Mobile, and they just finished a $40 million round, so they're very well funded. And they're kind of creating like a micro ISP model where there's community ownership of the internet service provider, and then what you can do is have small businesses create internet for their communities and kind of franchise it and make profit from that. So we've been working very closely with them for about 3 years, and now they finally have the resources to actually run very significant pilots in the country of Zanzibar. And they'll be able to probably give hundreds of thousands of people internet before the end of 2022. And if that model works, we can franchise it across the entire continent of Africa and help get as many people online. Then we'll go up north to Ethiopia. We're meeting with the prime minister and a few other people. And we'll talk about everything from sovereign bonds to for hydroelectric power to digital identity. And then Kenya is probably the one I'm most looking forward to because I get to see the wildebeest migration. So there's 1.3 million of them running around, and that's going to be a chance of a lifetime. But then the other thing is the microfinance portfolio. So we have a partner there called Possessia, and we're doing $150,000 pilot with them for small business loans and individual loans. And then once we do that legacy pilot, we're going to do a Cardano-based pilot, and then we're going to compare the non-performing loan rate of the legacy system to the blockchain-based system and see which one would outperform which. And then up to Egypt, and that's just opening the marketplace. Plus, go hang around the pyramids and all the others. It's my birthday then, so I figured it'd be fun to get a little bit of fun before I go on home.
You got to make another one. Well, this has been time well spent. I look forward to maintaining our relationship as the bulldozer is crushing through and making way for these really exciting possibilities. It's the sun will rise. I've got that feeling, but perhaps we can sit down and swap a few tall tales. I'm sure you'll be returning with a carload.
Absolutely. You got to come up my ranch one of these days. I got one in Wyoming, 11,000 acres and 500 bison. And so, well, more welcome to have you come on by. And I'd love to see what you guys accomplish with the NFTs on Cardano. And I know that's just the beginning. And as that grows, there's going to be a lot of really cool things that come out. And what's so exciting, there's so much creativity. There's a lot of musicians, a lot of artists, young artists too. I get their artwork all the time. This is something came from, I think, a 15-year-old gal, and she hand painted all these and sent them to me. So this is a peacock, and then I got another one right here with the bulls and the bears and me drinking a coconut drink. I guess I tweeted that picture at some point. And then what she does is she turns them to NFTs on the Cardano blockchain, and she's actually made more money than her dad made this year selling those. So she's having a good time.
Yeah, just yesterday, after hanging up from the rather intriguing meeting, I got my scratch pad was out and about, and I did a little self-portrait there. The creative juices are definitely waiting to be ignited. So let's keep the ball rolling.
Absolutely, Billy. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.